While South Africans are fighting immigrants, somebody is stealing their whole country. And it's not the immigrants. When you look at the actual numbers of people who attended those marches, they were small. The internet has a way of making outrage seem bigger than it actually is. But more importantly, both migrants and people against them are fighting for scraps. And you have to ask, who's actually eating the bread then? Because whilst we're chasing pregnant Zimbabwean women away from clinics for using 200 rands worth of medical supplies, a politician used 150 million rand of COVID funds to buy Smeg appliances and renovate his house. Another used $250 million in public security funds to build a swimming pool. Liam Jacobs has literally made a career out of documenting and calling this type of behavior out. By the way, I saw a comment that said he's literally the Janasi of Parliament because of how many times he's switched parties. The corruption isn't hidden, you just have to look at the right people. And the scary thing is, it never stops there. It started with Nigerians, and then Zimbabweans. Now people from Limpopo are getting targeted because they don't look South African enough. You're building a hierarchy of who belongs, and once you start doing that, you don't get to control where it ends. That's how you got Rwanda, and that's how you got apartheid. No rational human being commits these things without being convinced that their target isn't fully human. Because this is exactly what's happening in America right now for largely the same reasons. In the US, you have a working class that's been devastated since manufacturing moved to China, and wages have stagnated for decades. Then the same people who did that to them now point their rage at Mexicans whilst walking away clean. MAGA isn't a working class revolution, it is working class rage that has been redirected. And someone in South Africa is doing the exact same thing. They're making sure that the anger of people in the townships, legitimate, real, valid anger after 30 years of so-called liberation, where their land hasn't been distributed and their minds still aren't theirs, they're making sure that that anger is being aimed at Somalians instead of Santon. And what makes this worse is who's being targeted. The ANC's entire armed struggle was conducted in exile, in Zimbabwe, in Mozambique. Those frontline states fed, housed, and protected South African liberation fighters, and they were bombed for it. They had acts of war committed against them for standing with South Africa, and now we're turning away and deporting Ghanaians because we think they're gonna steal our jobs. These are diplomatic wounds that make one thing clear: South Africa is not for Africans. That's why it was so easy to support Mexico in the World Cup. By the way, I'm gonna leave this here for the rest of the video. And listen, June 30th will come and go. You will still have potholes, and medical funds will still be used for politician holidays. Getting rid of immigrants deals with the symptoms, not the disease. Pouring water on one burning branch doesn't stop the whole tree from burning. Political action doesn't feel as sexy and revolutionary as a march or a protest. It doesn't feel like enough of a silver bullet. But you've had the same ruling party ever since independence, and somehow anger never seems to land there. Hate is a very powerful unifying force. Somebody knows that, and somebody is using it.